set this up over. Oops, sorry. Getting caught in my stuff. So I just got back from a backpack trip yesterday, just an overnighter, and I already put some pictures on here about it. Just me and my little girl dog, Jessie. She's not so little anymore. She's like 2.5. You guys only have a couple days left of school. That's exciting. So, my theme this month is water. You know, all the different forms of water, the water cycle, where it evaporates from the ocean and from plants, from soil, and goes up into vapor and forms clouds. And then clouds, rain. I read that 70% of the rain falls over the oceans. And then on land, it comes down as rain and snow and drains back into the ocean. There's the same amount of water in the earth. It just keeps changing forms. And babies are like 70% water. We're about 55 or 60% water. So when I went up backpacking, I had this special spot way up high on a ridge that levels out for about 100 feet. And it's just such a gorgeous spot. I could see east and west from the ridge, but it's a dry ridge. So that would be a problem. Because, excuse me, sorry, that would be a problem because I need water, and water's heavy to carry in your backpack. But a couple years ago, I found this big hole in the rock that fills with water. And every time I've been there, it's had a lot of water, so that's what I use as my water source. I filter it, but so it's not really a dry ridge for me, and I'll show you photos of that. But my story about water is about, it's an Ottawa Native American tale about a woman named Manana of the waterfall. When she was a shapeshifter, the Great Spirit would help her and she could change forms. And so she would lie on her back and look up at the night sky and look at the Milky Way, and she dreamed of going up there and exploring. And so she asked the Great Spirit, can I do that? The Great Spirit enabled that to happen for her. And she flew through the night sky for many years, exploring all parts of the Milky Way, and it was absolutely beautiful. But after a while, she kept thinking about what she missed about Earth. You know, early in the morning in springtime, hearing all the birds sing, and the feel of the warm sun on your skin in the morning and walking on the ground. And she asked the Great Spirit, could she return to Earth as a human again? The Great Spirit said, that's going to be difficult. You'll have to go through stages. First, you'll become a fish-like creature, a mermaid. And then in time, if you spend more time on land, you'll lose some of your fish characteristics and you'll become more human. But you'll never be truly human until you fall in love with another human. This is kind of a love story. And so she did. She came down and she lived with the water spirits around the waterfall, which were also shapeshifters and could take a mermaid form. And they really liked having Manana there. She had a pleasant personality. They became her family. But she would go down below the waterfall and climb up on the bank and sit in the warm sun. And the more she did that, the more she started losing some of the scales that were on her arms and her back and her shoulders. And the skin that kept her legs together and her mermaid tail, it started getting thinner. And after a while, her legs broke apart. And so she could practice walking. It was really hard and painful at first. She had to use a stick to stand up. And at first she could only take about 5 steps, and then she was exhausted. But she kept practicing every day, and after several months, she could actually walk through the woods, and she absolutely loved it. You know, like I said, the bird song and the smell of the spruce and fir needles in the forest, and the warm sun. She was really happy. Well, there was an Ottawa warrior that was hunting one day, and he was walking along a cliff. He looked down into a valley and he saw Manana walking along a stream. He could see some of the scales on her back that were still there. So he kind of walked through the trees and spied on her. And then he went in front and confronted her. He said, "Who are you and where did you come from?" And she said, "I'm Manana of the waterfall." And they talked for a long time. And then he invited her. He got a good feeling about her, that she was a good person. And he invited her to the village. She went with him and ate dinner with them. And everybody liked being around Manana, just like the water spirits. When she talked, it was like the song of a song sparrow. She had a pleasant voice. And they invited her to stay. And she actually stayed there every night. She didn't go back to the waterfall. They became another family for her. And she stayed there for many months, and she wondered when she was gonna fall in love and have a true human soul. It hadn't happened. But one day, some Adirondack warriors came and met with the Ottawa warriors to work out a peace treaty so they'd stop fighting and killing each other. And there was an Adirondack warrior, a young man named Pascaret, and he saw Manana, and it was almost like love at first sight, you know. And after the meeting, he came and found her, and they talked. They kept walking around the village, getting to know each other. And after that day, Pascaret would go hunting and then find that was a reason to come and visit the Ottawa village. He would share what he killed with the Ottawas, a deer or whatever. And then he could see Manana. This went on for several months, and they got to know each other really well, and they fell deeply in love. Manana was really happy, this feeling inside. She knew she had fallen in love and she was gonna have a human spirit, and they could hardly stand to be apart. So one day Pascaret went to the Adirondack chief of his village and told him how much he loved this Ottawa woman, Manana, and he asked permission to marry her. And the Adirondack chief said, a lot of us have heard about her, and we think that there's something strange about her, that she's not truly human. And let me think about it overnight. And so the next morning, the Adirondack chief said, you don't have my permission. In fact, I don't want you to go see her anymore. Which made Pascaret really unhappy. He kept sneaking out at night and meeting Manana on the edge of the Ottawa village. But one night, the Adirondack warriors followed him, and they waited until he met up with Manana. And then they drove her away. She had to run. They were throwing sticks and shooting arrows near her. And they tied Pascaret up and brought him back and put him in a teepee and wouldn't let him leave until he agreed to not go see Manana, which made both of them really unhappy. They had broken hearts. And it took a couple months before Pascaret agreed not to go see her. But then he didn't after that. They really missed each other. And so Manana started going back to the waterfall and spending time with her water spirit friends. And she told them what the Adirondacks did. They wouldn't let her and Pascaret be together. And the water spirits were really angry. And when they were away from Manana, they said, we need to get revenge on the Adirondacks for what they did. So at the end of the story, one day the Adirondack warriors were canoeing on a really big, calm river. The water spirit, mermaid-like creatures, without Manana, went up the river, and they turned it into a raging rapid, a whitewater rapid, and they were gonna drown all of the Adirondack warriors. Pascaret was there too. And these warriors were trying to keep their canoes from turning over, and they could see these angry mermaid faces once in a while in the whitewater. It was terrifying. And Manana found out what was going on when a lot of the water spirits were absent that day. She went up the river and she saw what was happening. And she begged her friends to don't kill the Adirondack warriors, and they listened to her. They stopped, and the river became calm. And the Adirondacks paddled up the river. Pescara was the last one to leave, and he looked down, and for a few seconds he saw Manana appear above the water level. Well, he kept coming back to that part of the river, hoping to see her again. And after a couple weeks, she appeared. She came swimming towards him, and he stepped out of his canoe near the bank, and the water went up to about his waist. And they came together and held hands, and they were so happy to be together. And Pescara said, "I never want to leave you again. That was just too hard." And Manana said, "Well, then don't. Come with me." And that's what he did. He went with Manana and lived near the waterfall. And he decided, he asked Manana if this was possible, and he decided, "Can I become a water spirit also, so I can stay with you?" And Manana asked the Great Spirit, and yes, it could happen. And so the end of the story is that the Adirondacks really missed Pescara, and they realized that they had been wrong in not allowing Pescara and Manana to be together, and they were sorry. And there was a day of celebration at the waterfall. The first part of the day was a ceremony where Pescara would become a water spirit. The second part of the day and into the evening was the wedding of Pescara and Manana. And it was a very happy time. They were incredibly happy. They felt they were blessed. So that's the end of the story. So, are there any questions about that? I have a bunch of pictures to show you and videos, all related to water. This was up one year. In June, me and the dogs were hiking up during the spring runoff, and it was really noisy, really neat. So, yeah, water in all its forms. Most of these are Colorado. Some are Wyoming and Montana. This was Montana. I always teach the dogs to kayak when they're young. This was Utah. The water in all its forms. When we backpack above timberline, I check the weather forecast. Because you're so exposed up there, you don't want to be up there when there's bad thunderstorms in the summer. There's Bo with his backpack on. And yeah, this was springtime. I used to volunteer at Bar Lake, and that's when I took that picture. Yeah, we're lucky to live in Colorado. That was actually June. It was a late snowstorm. And this is Wyoming. The Green River up high. And let's see. This is the Colorado River in Utah. So, yeah, and there's all. I've had 9 border collies over the years, over the last 40 years. So, I mentioned my backpack trip. I've actually had 2 backpack trips since I saw you last, and I really enjoyed it. I went to the same spot both times. This about 100 feet wide, maybe longer, level spot up high around rock outcroppings. It's like a secret place, and I've never seen anybody up there. I don't think I ever will, because it's way off trail. But like I said, since it's a dry ridge, I found this water pothole a few years ago, and every time I've been there, it's been full of water. And I filter it before I drink it, and it's actually, I had some yesterday. It tastes really good. So this is the second backpack trip with just me and Jess, and we're getting used to it, just the 2 of us. She loves going up there. That was Monday evening, and here's me and Jess yesterday morning. I put my camera on a tripod and it takes pictures. I set it to take pictures by itself. So, and the other thing about water is the ocean. You guys know I love the ocean, so here is some pictures of the ocean. We need the sun, the moon, the stars, the rivers and the mountains and birds, the fish in the sea to evoke a world of mystery, to evoke the sacred. And that was Wendell Berry. Isn't that, is your mascot the dolphin?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Yeah, this was in the South Pacific, and I was hanging onto the boat with my left hand and holding my GoPro in the right hand, and the boat was moving along slowly. Yes?
Why are we just bringing
Oh, you know, what, I didn't put my earplugs in. What did she say?
Tell her, will you say it again?
Why are you only bringing like your one dog Jessie?
Oh, because Bo passed away about a month ago. And, yeah, he was only 11. He stopped eating. He had cancer. It happened really fast after over about 3 weeks. So I'm kind of getting over it now. But, and then Haley is 14 and a half, and she's just too old to climb those ridges anymore. So she has to stay home. And this is one of the peak experiences of my life in the South Pacific. The boat took us out looking for humpback whales, and we found one, and so it was an inflatable boat with 7 of us in it. And what the captain did is he found the whales, and he told us, everybody jump out. We had snorkels on, and he took the boat away because the boat can scare the whales. And so there were 2 giant humpback whales down below, and one of them came up to get air right in front of us. It was like really amazing. One of the guys from New Zealand was, everybody else was from New Zealand. And he got so excited he dropped his GoPro and went to the bottom of the ocean. But we shared our footage with him. This is the same place, Niue Island, said to have the clearest seawater in the world. Maybe I'll go back there next year. That would be neat. I've always thought about going back there. That was 2018. Indonesia, where I've gone 4 times, I'm going 5 times. So I have a few minutes. Let me go to Google Earth and I'll tell you another quick story. So, let me search for dry tortugas. The Florida Keys is where I first started snorkeling, and Dry Tortugas is 90 miles west of Key West. And it actually was, they call islands keys out there. And it was, this one was a fort during the Civil War. They built a fort around it to protect the United States from the ocean down there. And you can still see cannons on there. One 3rd grader last week said, why don't you use Street View? And I had forgot about that. So if you click on that little person, anything in blue is Street View. And it's loading. This is connected to my phone. So let's try it. There we go. And I camped there 3 or 4 times. It'll load. It just takes a second. And you can walk all around. It has a moat around it. And sometimes there's a saltwater crocodile in the moat.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and there's legends that there's ghosts in there. And, I've walked around there at night. It's really cool. And so, let's do this again. Let's look inside. It's gonna come. Yeah, there's inside. And so when you camp there, you can walk all around. It's hard to get a camping reservation. but I've done it several times, about 10 years ago. Yes?
Wait, where is that from?
What do you
It's
say?
in Florida.
Oh.
He asked where it is.
Yeah,
Off of
so, but what I wanted to show you is, there's another key or island about 3 miles to the west. Let's see, Loggerhead Key. There it is. And on the other side of Loggerhead Key is a coral reef called Little Africa. Actually, let me switch back to north. Yeah, on the other side, this side is Loggerhead Key. And so let me show you the lighthouse. So I kayak over there and go snorkeling in Little Africa coral reef on the other side. So, but before you do that, you're supposed to go to the ranger and tell him what your plans are in case you don't come back.
Oh.
And so, you wanna hear a scary story?
Yeah.
So I went to the ranger at Garden Key and I said, I'm gonna kayak over. I brought an inflatable kayak in my luggage. And he said, okay, but let me tell you a story first, a true story before you go. And he said, there were 2 young people that kayaked over to Loggerhead Key like you're gonna do. And on the way back, you're going against the current and the sea was rough. And they got dumped out of their kayak. And the current moved their kayak away and they couldn't catch up with it. And so they're floating in the ocean. It got to be dark, very, very scary. And so the other people at the campground, which is right there, they told the ranger our friends didn't come back. So the ranger radioed the Coast Guard and the Coast Guard came searching with the light. And they found the man and they rescued him. They kept searching and they found the woman. But the really sad, unfortunate thing is that sharks had already found her and she did not survive. So and I later found a news article that verified his story. And so after he told me that, I said, well, you know what, I think I just changed my mind. But I did go the next day and I went several times. I'll never do it again because it's very easy to get over there to Loggerhead Key. That's the route you follow. It only takes about 30 minutes because you're going with the current. But when you come back, you're against the current and it's one of the hardest things I ever have done. You can't stop paddling because if you do, you lose the last several minutes of advance that you just gained. And so one time I paddled back, I think I've done it 3 times, and I was so exhausted I slept for 11 hours. And a storm was coming in, it was April, and there were about 30 boats in the lagoon to weather out the storm. And I slept right through it, I was so exhausted in my tent. But birds were migrating then, it was April, and they came to the island to get out of the storm, and a lot of them were so exhausted, they just fell over and died. And the ranger was going around picking up all the birds. Yeah, so anyway. So, the other place I'm going, which I mentioned before, is in October, I'm going to Xiao Island, a place I've never been before. Yeah. And it has a volcano on the north side. Let's let it load. It's a very active volcano. It's erupted twice in the last 10 years, but not enough to drive the people off the island. There's 40,000 people there. Most of them are farmers or fishermen, and the soil is very rich from the volcano, and they grow nutmeg. So I'm staying in Yulu, and I'm gonna rent a motorbike. I'm also going with a diving company for 7 days, and they are going to take me to one of these islands over here, and we're actually gonna spend the night. So let me show you what those islands look like. Up at the top. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna go to the other one. Let's go to this one. I think I changed the sort level, and so it's not where I expected it to be. So let's go down. Down to the bottom. Wow, I don't see it. These are all my pictures from the ocean. Oh, there we go, right there. Those are the islands. So you can see why I'm so excited. Let's go to Street View and see if we can spot something down here in Ulu. Well, actually, Ulu is up here. Here we go. You gotta go to the blue spots. So somebody in Indonesia has added this to Google Earth. There you can see the volcano. And there's the street, and there's our motorbike. Things look, when you live that close to the ocean, all your buildings get weathered quickly. They look old very quickly. The boats only last a few years because all that salt air is really hard on things. So let's go back. Let's do another one. Let's try this one right. When they bought me a brand new bicycle when I went last August, and the owner of the resort said that bicycle won't last very long. They never do. So there's a motorbike, and I've done this before, and there's somebody looking at his phone. So, yeah, I'm very, very excited. Let's look at a few more of these ocean pictures. So that's a queen angelfish. No, that's a French angelfish. And when they're little, they have orange and white stripes. And that picture I actually took at Little Africa near Loggerhead Key. And a shark passed me once, and I tried to follow it. And that's when I got that picture. Normally sharks don't bother people.
So how, when a woman eaten by a shark, should I bother them? Like, what did she do to the...
You know, maybe they sense that she was in distress, you know, because they can like feel electric currents from creatures. I don't know what happened. So, yeah, but there's me in my kayak, and actually look, there's Garden Key right there. So you can, and this was the Florida Keys, and that's the biggest shark I ever saw. He came by, and I was the only one that saw it. My time's almost up. I wanted to show you queen angelfish. They're only in the Caribbean. There's another French angelfish, juvenile. But I love queen angelfish. And for some reason I was always able to get close to them in the Florida Keys. I've seen the same ones in the Southern Caribbean, and they like, as soon as they see you, they swim away, and I can't get close to them, but I love these photos I got of the queen angelfish. They're so pretty.
How'd you get so close to that?
They just weren't afraid of me, and I was able to swim close to them. This is one of my absolute favorite. Those are blue tangs and some coral in the Florida Keys. So are there any questions? Yes.
I was once paddleboarding, like at a paddleboard camp,
and there was like this very windy storm, and I was going against the current, and it took me 15 minutes to get back from shore, even though I was only like 200 feet away.
Oh, yeah, that's really scary. I was just reading a podcast yesterday about a surfer that got stuck. The wind pulled him away for over a day, and he thought he was dead, but a helicopter found him. So, yes?
Did you go fishing?
Yeah, I did, several years ago from my kayak, and I found that, you know, I'm used to catching trout. When you catch ocean fish, they're so strong. It feels a lot different than trout.
Very.
Yeah, so anyway, parrotfish, they have big teeth, they munch on coral to eat algae, and then they poop out sand. Okay, my time's up. I love telling stories to you guys this year.
Oh, you sound like a pirate ship.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Have you ever seen a frogfish?
No, I never have. I would love to.